Here's one for you. This one has to do with, our last four presidents, I'll say. All right, Obama, then Trump, then Biden, then Trump again. What do these four presidents, or these three presidents, have in common? One is they all claim to have the greatest economies in history. And I know that they measure that based on stock market analytics, and by all accounts, it would be hard to dismiss that as fact. Okay, have we gone through recessions in this time period? Yes, we have. So aside from those time periods, I'm gonna just decipher where we are today, and I'm gonna try to simplify this. I'm gonna call this stupid contractor math. Okay, I say that because I'm a dumb contractor, but this is what you're seeing, and understand this as well before I get into this. Democrats and Republicans are two wings from the same bird. And if you think that either of the parties is ever doing anything in the interest of the general public and American people, you're wrong. That is not the way it works. They are in the pockets of the large corporations, and both of them. It would appear that the Democrats favor the pharmaceutical companies more, and healthcare, and would-be unions for a long time, and the Republicans favor the military-industrial complex corporations, and their growth and whatnot. And both of these sides, and the companies that and technology also leans towards the Democrat side, and Hollywood towards the Democrat side, and blue-collar America tends to lean towards the Republicans, and they are the biggest demographic as far as tax money paid and money spent. So of course, that surmises, the layout that we're working with. With that said, as a contractor, last year in 2024, I had a record year from a revenue perspective, right? If I was a publicly traded company and in the stock market and on the stock market, my year-over-year sales revenue went up a substantial amount, probably 15%, maybe 18%. Last year, I broke $1 million in revenue for the first time in my life. With that said, mind you, we just lived through, and are currently living through the highest inflationary period that we've seen in my lifetime. Everything is easily up 40%. All right. I'd say over the past. I'm gonna say over the past 4 years, assuming that not much changed in Biden's first year, and then inflation really started to kick in. In year 2, 3, 4, and now we're almost through the first year of Trump, second term, and inflation is still ridiculous. I'm mortified every time I go shopping, every time I go to the store. I'm mortified at, the things that we order off Amazon out of convenience, and the cost of everything is just outrageous. And my building materials are no different than that. Everything is sky high in price. However, Wall Street doesn't look at it that way. They don't acknowledge the inflation, and they certainly don't acknowledge the idea that your revenue is better because of inflation. Because as a business owner, my only choice is, if I have to If all I'm doing is drywall work, and drywall used to be $12 or $13 a sheet, and now it's $22 to $23 a sheet, right? That is 100% inflation. That drywall has. Well, I can't do drywall anymore for the price that I was doing drywall at 4 years ago, where I used to be able to hang drywall and spackle and finish it for roughly $1 a square foot, right? So a 4x8 sheet of drywall would have basically been $32 to purchase, hang, and finish. Now, obviously you're not doing that by the sheet. That would be on bulk work. You'd be looking at it from more than say 60 or 80 sheets. You could use that math for it and work, right? Now, so if I did a 100 sheet job, that would have been 32 times 100 is 3,200. So I could do that job for $3,200, and probably have made $1,000 off of the job after buying material and hanging it and doing all the work, or maybe a little more. It's probably close to like 1,500 I could have made. Could have done that job in about 3 days, roughly, using quickset spackle. So yeah, 1,500 in 3 days means I make $500 a day. Blah blah blah. Well, my need to live at that income level hasn't changed, right? Now that I'm paying $23 a sheet for drywall, right, I can no longer charge $1 a square foot. So now I'm charging $2 a square foot or more for the same drywall. So now that same 100 sheet job that would have been $3,200, now I have to charge $6,400 for it. And my material cost has doubled. And so at the end of the day, at minimum, I'm making the same exact dollars that I made to do the drywall job. I'm making my $500 a day still, but I paid double the amount for the material. But of course, on paper, that made my revenue look better. And so Wall Street is salivating at the idea of me going public because my sales my revenues increased, of course. So yeah, that's the smoke and mirrors that you see in today's economy. When you turn around and you look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average and it's hovering around 45,000, and Trump is on TV spouting that we've never seen a greater economy in America, right? Because of that, because all of these giant corporations are doing, their revenues way up and they're doing really, really well, so on and so forth. That's all you're seeing, is that their revenue is up. It doesn't mean per se that they're more profitable, although they are making profit, of course. I also, like I said, made profit on the job. So their revenue is up and it looks good, and so they're going to attract more investors and people are going to buy their stocks, and then they have these other shady tricks that they do where they issue bonuses to all the leadership groups of all these giant corporations, and those leaders turn around and just buy back their own stock to increase the value of their stock, which increases their portfolio, also increases their net worth. They don't use that money for anything. Then they turn around and take loans based on what their net worth is and what they can prove that they own in stock options, blah, blah, blah. So, they never lose. And that's just the way that the system is run. But, I just wanted to show you some simple math that at the end of the day, when you see that, to back up. And the larger point of this is, as I said, I may have to double my price to do the 100 sheet drywall job to make the same amount of money. And although my profit margin remains much the same, and I made the exact same money that I was making 3-4 years ago, understand this: everything else in my life has increased in price. My electric bill's gone up, my cell phone's go up, my cable's gone up, food is up. Food for your household is up 40%. Household goods is up 45%. Gas still remains over 3 something a gallon in New Jersey where I'm at. So So that $500 a day that I was making 4 years ago is not as valuable today as it was then. So much for your best economy ever. I don't understand why people can't understand that this is the way that it works. I voted for Trump. I want to see inflation come down. That is the thing that I want to see the most. I want life to become more affordable and be able, and more livable for us. So yeah, they're my thoughts. Thanks for listening.